It's been a couple weeks since we talked to somebody from the great sport of wrestling on here. It's been even longer since we talked to a Canadian. So we're going to put the two together. We're going to talk to a great Canadian wrestler here. We have a guest who is a Tokyo Olympian, a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. And if you're watching this on video, you can see behind him pretty much champion in everything else that ever existed. Today we have Amar Dhesi on here, who's a couple weeks away, a couple months away, depending on when you're listening to this, from the upcoming Paris Olympics. Amar, it's great to have you here today.
No, thank you. Thank you both for having me. I'm excited for a talk. It'll be good. Looking forward to it.
You know, we always start off by asking like how you got into your sport and everything, but it doesn't take much digging to find out that you probably have this from birth, history in the sport. DNA, is it built into your DNA? You want to tell us a little bit about the history and how far back it goes? Do you even remember, your introduction to wrestling, or it was literally right out of the womb? You're right on the mat.
No, whenever anybody asks me, it's I've been saying this for years, but you can find anything about me online. I talk about my family a lot, obviously, just because they got me into the sport. But like you said, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember the first time I stepped on the mat. I always say, like, I can remember maybe when I was 5 or 6. I'm pretty sure I was probably on the mat earlier than that. But I started, my dad got me into wrestling. Both my dad and my grandpa wrestled it back in India. And then my dad came here in 1976 to Canada, opened up a non-profit wrestling club called Costa Wrestling Club now. And I pretty much started there with all my cousins, all my brothers, got beat up a lot. But introduction was from my dad, and that was not by a choice. So
family business, basically. You kind of, you grow up with that. I saw on one interview you did, and I'd love for you to tell the story on this show, about your dad, basically the day you were born, was even doing something related to wrestling. Is this true?
Yeah. So we started up... So wrestling in like our culture in India, like in Punjabi culture specifically, is really big. It's huge. And him coming from India and him coming here, there wasn't much of a culture of that. Like they would host tournaments outside, actually, on the grass. So he used to, when he came initially, he used to wrestle on the grass a lot. So he started up this club, and then from there they opened up a lot more clubs from our initial club. So then they were like, hey, in the summers, let's get together and start these tournaments. So my dad was hosting the first one when I was born.
Wow.
So he's like, hey, I can't skip this. So he told my mom. I'm not sure the conversation, how that went, but I just know he won that battle. And he knows my mom, actually, somebody at the hospital who was with my mom called an uncle of mine who was at the tournament and was like, hey, like, your newborn son is here. Whenever you can come by and see him, that'd be great. So he shows up with 30 guys, all his 30 buddies from the tournament, to the hospital. Then we'll walk in, from what I remember. And then I just remember that my mom's telling me that he left the hospital a few hours later, and then he didn't show up the next morning. I guess they were having a few drinks.
Colin, that's the excuse. That's what you need.
That's how I can get up for more training.
It's like the cars are still parked in the hospital the next morning. They had to go back and pick them up. So, yeah, that was my introduction.
We were talking during the coverage of the last Olympics, just about, India's presence within the Olympics, for the size, the population, everything. And it really is incredible, like the shift, if you look throughout history, and when wrestling just became like the thing. I mean, it almost is the default sport in India now. Do you know what it is? Has your dad ever explained what it is with the Indian culture and the draw towards wrestling?
Honestly, it's a hard explanation, but I know in our specific religion, like Sikhism, we started off as warriors. And that was, wrestling was one of the sports that was taught, like initially to protect yourself and, defend yourself, pretty much. So I'm pretty sure that's where it started in our culture and Punjabi culture. But all around India, it's a huge sport, and I know that he always tells me stories from his heyday and his time, and just listening to that, it's amazing. I know it's comes down to like the fan base, and then just amount of like money they funnel into wrestling out there, and then government support, and then the city support, and then just the villages. It's apparently tremendous. I'm trying to go after the Olympics, try to go check it out at least. But I haven't got a chance yet. I'm so busy with all this.
When it came to Canada and your dad moves here, family moves here, just in terms of wrestling and location-wise, I know we've talked to a lot of athletes on this show about hubs for various sports, East Coast, West Coast, the kind of Canada, it's a big diverse country. Is wrestling a sport where, because you're on the West Coast, maybe it's a lot more West Coast centric, East Coast centric, or is it sort of it's spread out enough that there isn't really kind of divisions between the areas of the country?
No, it's definitely divisions for sure. Now it is for sure. I know, it's West Coast is us here in Vancouver. We have a big base of that for wrestling, and then East Coast would be Toronto, Montreal. They also have really big bases for that. But yeah, when he came, I don't think there was too much of a base. Actually, no, when he came, there was great wrestling here. We were probably better than any other province, and we were probably getting more medals back then. Just because around his time we had numerous Olympic medals and world medalists. We don't really have that today in Canada, unfortunately, in wrestling, but hopefully we can change that soon. And yeah, the stories that he tells me about going up to SFU and wrestling these old school guys, it's fun to listen to.
I can imagine, growing up with somebody who's that involved in the sport. I mean, it's either going to go one of two ways. You're either going to be not pressured or anything, but like you could follow in your dad's footsteps, or it could go the opposite direction where it's like, oh, this is my dad's thing. I want to do it. What was it like for you? Or was this something you were drawn to it? Like you wanted to follow after your dad? Were you following him around, trying to copy his moves, or did it take you longer to kind of come along to it?
Yeah, it was, I think I was lucky in a sense, like you nailed it, right? I see that all the time with our college coaches and just in general, the public whose parents have wrestled and then their sons or daughters don't wrestle or they don't like the sport or they feel pressured, like exactly how you said. As a kid, I definitely felt the pressure. It was heavy on me and throughout my career, but I think I enjoyed the process, and I was really fortunate enough to have like a like-minded group around me that I looked up to and I wanted to be friends with and I wanted to be brothers with, and so we all did the same things. Like I didn't have friends outside of wrestling. I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends outside of wrestling.
You mentioned your brother there. Your brother, is he your older brother or younger brother?
Yeah, older brother. I have one older brother, and then when I say brothers, it's like a group of us that I grew up with since they've known me since I was a baby.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, brotherhood. Yeah, pretty more like that. Yeah.
I read that your brother had actually competed like during the Youth Olympics and everything. I mean, at that point, were you interested in the sport, or was that something you got exposed to? Did you get to go watch him?
Yeah, no, we made the same Canadian team. So we made the cadet team, and I was a weight class below him. But at that time, Canada was only taking two male weight classes for the Youth Olympics, and my weight class didn't get selected, so I wasn't allowed to go. So I was pretty disappointed by that at the time. I was like, I should be going too.
Wow.
But at that time, I was really young. I was like 14. He was a year older, and so it was an exciting experience for him. And we always joke around like he's like, I'm the first Olympian in the family, and then I'll be like, no, you're not.
That's the Youth Olympics, not the real Olympics, right?
Come on, what are you talking about?
We literally just. Yeah, we literally just covered the Youth Olympics.
Oh, really? He was telling you about like the walk. Oh, he's like you're gonna see this, you're gonna see that. He's like, it's amazing. And I was like, buddy, you went to the Youth Olympics. Like, I don't think it's at the same, like, I mean, those guys, the people at the Youth Olympics that he wrestled are the same guys I'm wrestling to this day in my weight class now. So yes, it does translate for sure. But
it's always, I guess, that we find from a lot of athletes on this show who go to the Youth Olympics. It's almost like that preview and a precursor to kind of going to an Olympics and sort of experiencing it on that level. So I guess even hearing some stories from your brother maybe helped a little bit. I'm not too sure. I mean, ultimately you'll go to a full Olympics and then a Commonwealth Games to kind of experience that. But you didn't get to travel to Singapore with him to kind of go watch him at all?
No. He went by himself with the team in Canada. But yeah.
Did you at any point sort of along the wrestling journey dabble in other sports? Could we be talking to you today potentially as an Olympian in a different sport at all? Had that gone a different direction?
No, probably not Olympian, but if we had like there's a football photo, like back in the background. And so I played football for like 6 years, but it's a running joke in my family. I never scored a touchdown in those 6 years. But my cousin, I was a fullback for a lot of those years, and my cousin who was a snapper, he scored a touchdown before me.
Wow.
He fell on the ball. on the
Okay.
1 yard line. He fell on the ball
Still
and he
counts.
scored a touchdown. It counted, and as a running joke, that in 6 years I never scored a touchdown. So it's silly. So it wasn't my sport at the time.
You weren't
So,
quite going to line up for the Lions or anything like that, sort of growing up,
yeah,
or
I wasn't going to walk down an NFL arena or anything like that. So
anything along that.
I chose wrestling instead.
Do you remember, like, was there a point where you kind of made a choice that wrestling was the sport you're going to pursue? You know, obviously football wasn't working out and you're like, let me try something I've had a little bit more success in. Or was there a moment where, you know, it just clicked with you? It's like, this is something that I love and it's not just something that I like practicing that's in the family.
No, for sure. Football is a funny story. I'll just quickly touch on that because my brother joined football. He was always interested in football, so he joined the community league here. And my dad would take me and my cousin to practice, to his football practice. And unfortunately for us, there was a track at the practice. So while his 2-hour practice is going around, we're running for 2 hours, me and my cousin. So we planned this together. We're like, hey, we're going to join football next year, not because we like it, but because we hate running. So that's the reason I probably came in with a bad mindset. So I didn't expect to do anything in the sport. But yeah, like you said, like we chose it. My dad gave us an option pretty much. He's like, hey, like it's time to choose one sport. Like that was around 14, around there, that age. He's like, it's time to choose one sport. Like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'm 100% wrestler. That's what I do. My brother was kind of on the fence. He was really good at football too, but he chose wrestling ultimately too. But yeah, when I was 14, that's when things clicked for me. I started enjoying wrestling more. I won a tournament that kind of something just snapped in my head, and I was like, hey, I can be pretty good at this.
Which obviously your dad's probably very happy about that. You make that decision. I mean, I'm sure he would have supported you had you stuck to football, of course, as parents do, but I'm sure, you know, that made him happy along those ways. Did you set yourself targets when you're sort of winning those tournaments and you're realizing this is the path you want to take? Were the Olympics always that ultimate goal to kind of make that team one day?
Yeah, definitely. From early as I can remember, my dad would always talk about the Olympics. Like, it's so funny seeing the progression of just like members of our club and members of like the goals that you set for yourself and how much higher they get every year or every so often when somebody achieves this. Like, so like in our, like, for example, like in our club, when I first started like hearing goals around would be like probably when I was 8 or 9. And I remember that like we would do sprints and the older kids would be yelling what they want to do, like what they want to achieve while they're running. And I would be hearing guys who made like the junior world team saying like, oh, top 10 finish. Oh, like win nationals or something that's not, now it's not that big, but to me back then it was huge. And then and after them seeing those guys accomplish that goal, it was just like, hey, let's keep stepping up here. So
one thing I'd like to know, I know it's obviously not a summer Olympics, it's a winter Olympics, but was sort of being in BC around 2010, the Vancouver Olympics, a bit of an eye-opener and kind of helps fuel that passion a lot? I mean, I ask that because growing up, we had Sydney and always an Olympic fan, but it fuels your fire a little bit more being an Olympic fan when you're experiencing it in your own country and the passion and everything. But for yourself, Amar, was that something that being open and, witness to an Olympics in your backyard, that kind of also kind of helped with that dream a little bit more as well?
Yeah, definitely. I can still remember walking around when I was like 14 downtown when the Summer Olympics were going on. I specifically remember because I broke my ear. That was the first time I broke my ear and I got cauliflower.
You broke your ear? That's possible? I didn't know you could break your ear.
Yeah, like you break your cartilage in your ear and then
wow,
it just fills up with blood and it's cauliflower. And this looks like now, but back then it was just like a ball. Like it was a huge ball. And I remember like the wind would be hitting me and I could just feel the pain walking around downtown. So I remember those moments. But yeah, that definitely opened my eyes. It was like, hey, this is cool. But I didn't know I didn't know the amount of work it meant to get there. So
following up on cauliflower ear, I mean, I know you've gone through several injuries throughout your career and everything. I mean, what is it like to have to be sidelined by an injury? Like, has the timing ever worked out where you're like, oh, I had this big competition come up and now it's not going to are there ever thoughts of like, oh, am I going to be able to come back from this?
For cauliflower?
Well, no, not the cauliflower year, but like you had ACL tears and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Add that to the list. I mean, if that's prevented you from like.
I can tell if I walked into my coach and I was like, I'm not practicing, my ear hurts.
He would have fixed the other one to match it.
Yeah.
That's the best excuse ever. My ear hurts. I can't train today, coach.
No, yeah, definitely. Like, it's a lot of doubt, a lot of woe me type of things go through your head when you have serious injuries come up, and it's always a scary time just because you don't know, like, it's unknown. Like, am I gonna come back just as good? Like, am I gonna be? How much more work will I have to put in? Like, how many years am I behind? That sort of stuff goes through your head a lot, and then especially when it happens 3 times in your career, it's just like, hey, like, this just sucks. But every time, like, I just stayed more disciplined. It just made me more disciplined. Like, I knew I had to eat right. I knew I had to do everything I could besides running and besides doing something with my leg. So it was huge in that fact. It kept me more disciplined, and I honestly came back better every time. So.
Because I'm always curious whenever you hear somebody's injured, especially you think of something like an ACL tear. I mean, you must be very limited. Like, what types of are you just immediately looking for? I can lift cans with my arms, keep up fitness in one level, and then you'll make it up on the other ones later on. Like, what types of things would you make part of your routine if you're sidelined like that?
Yeah, I would. I still remember for my first one, I came in crutches back home after the surgery, and I was in Vancouver at the time because I was in Oregon for school, but I came back for surgery, and my brother actually handed me like a big 4-liter milk carton with no milk in it, just water. And he was like, he wrote on it, he's like, you didn't come this far just to come this far, sort of thing.
Wow.
And I remember when I would be sitting on the couch watching TV, I couldn't move my leg, I would be handed dumbbells. My dad would bring me dumbbells and he'd just hand them to me, and I would start doing like shoulder press and bicep curls. So every hour I'm doing like 100, 200 bicep curls.
Wow.
Like shoulder presses.
Unbelievable.
The whole day, that's what I'm doing.
Know what I'm doing next time I'm watching TV? I'm just sitting there.
Grabbing the milk jug.
That's crazy. I can see why you've got that thing behind you there saying the all-time best there. That kind of makes sense. Because, I mean, 3 ACL tears in 6 years. I mean, that's just insane. And just everything you're saying to overcome there. By the time you do your 3rd, are you just kind of like, this is just normal? You know what to expect at that point? Because, I mean, I can't imagine that you get to that point where you're all of a sudden like, here we go again, right? Like you're used to it by that point.
Yeah, it was crazy. I say this because every single like tear like had its own like obstacle to overcome. But by the 3rd one, it was just like, am I even meant for this? And that's what kept on going through my mind. Like, maybe I'm meant to do something else. Like, maybe it's like I would just, like something bad happens, we always blame God for it. Like, it's one of those things that people say, like, God's plan or something like that. At that time, I was just like, yeah, maybe he just doesn't want me to do this. Maybe I'm just not meant for this. But then I got lucky enough, the people around me, they pushed me and I stuck with it, fortunately enough. And then, yeah, it all worked out.
Because it's always we always find that, when you're overcoming that adversity, and as obviously as hard and it is, and you're questioning your path in the sport and your journey, it does also add something like fuel to the fire a little bit, doesn't it? So that, and obviously we're going to touch on Tokyo, but by the time you're on the mat at an Olympic Games, I'm sure it hits you at some level where you're like, okay, I did get through a lot to get here, and here I am. It was all worth it.
Yeah, for sure. It's I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend. It's hard to remember the things I've overcame. Like, just because it's been such a long journey and such a long process, and it's been so many years of so many things have happened to me, and it's just like it's hard to think about those times that I went through. But and it's easier to think about what I did last year or this last few months. So honestly, it doesn't come up too much in my mind. I know that it probably does for others, like my family and stuff. They think about that sort of thing. For me, it's just life. It is what it is at that point.
This might be a little bit of an odd question, more confusing than anything else, but think about weight classes. You're the upper weight class for your sport. Some of that obviously has to come down to, I'm this size, I'm this tall, this is how much I eat, this is, how much I work out. But is there any flexibility throughout your career as a wrestler where you're like, maybe I'll try a lower weight class, or did it go the opposite direction where you're like, I'm going to go for a higher weight class?
Yeah, early on in my career, like my high school career, I wasn't this big, obviously, but I started off at like 170s in between there, like 160s in between there, and then gradually I started getting bigger, and then it goes back to my dad. Like he had a plan. He had a plan for us. I was a taller one between me and my brother. And in our culture, you got to understand, like they love big boys. If you're a big guy, they love you. Like in the Indian culture, like you walk
I need to
around,
move
you're
to
big,
India.
you are loved. Like it's just a thing. I don't know what it is. So my dad had the same thought process. He wanted his kids to be pretty big. So he had an idea like, hey, like you're taller, you're gonna go heavyweight. My brother is a little shorter. He's like, hey, you're gonna go one weight class below him. So by grade 10, grade 11, I started gaining weight on purpose, trying to get my weight up there, and then yeah, it grew into my body. So
For wrestling specifically, like if you are at that upper weight class, is there technically a limit? Because you don't actually have a class that's higher than that. Could you be, 25, 30 kilograms heavier than your opponent and still able to compete?
so our cutoff is 125 kilos. So it'd be 275 pounds. That's our cutoff. And then
That's the
weight class
maximum.
below, that's the max. Yeah, you can't be any
Okay.
heavier than 50.
So it's not like
And then-
boxing where like in super heavyweight you can be 160 kilos in a 125. So it's not 125 plus, it's literally 125, right?
Yeah. I think back in the day they did have that, like an open weight class, and there would be guys like for 300 pounds versus a guy that's a lot smaller. But no, not anymore. That'd be pretty tough if somebody else can do that. So.
Do you ever go into maybe a competition? I'm just a notch over. I got to like sweat it out over the weekend and jump on a treadmill.
No, you know what? I'm always like 20, 30 pounds underweight class.
Okay, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'm always way under. As I got older, my weight came down. I think the baby fat like short off me. But in college, I used to weigh like 277, 280. I got really big. Now I'm walking around at like 250, and
Wow.
it's just my weight now. So I feel good here.
Here's a question. You might not know the answer to this because obviously it's a different discipline, but in Greco-Roman, the maximum is 130, not 125. Is that because Greco-Roman's, again, not as free as freestyle? Like it's a little bit more structured. Why do they have 5 extra kilos that they can play with?
Yeah, honestly, you're right. I don't know the answer to that.
Those Greco-Roman wrestlers, they don't count, do they?
Play by their own rule.
Play by their own rules. They do their own thing, basically, when it comes to that. Which actually, that's one fact, actually, that I wasn't aware of, that all of Canada's Olympic medals have come in freestyle. There've never been a Greco-Roman. We've actually never had a Greco-Roman wrestler on this show. I know we talked a few years ago to Jaden and Connor about sort of the differences, but is there much transition in the world of wrestling that if all of a sudden tomorrow you woke up and go, I'm going to give Greco-Roman a try, I want to put on an extra 5 kilos. Like, is there much transition, or once you're in freestyle, you stick to your lane and that's kind of what you're going to do for the rest of your life?
I would say it depends on your style of wrestling. Like I need to shoot. I need to get to the legs. I'm not much of a thrower or upper body type of guy, so I wouldn't be very good at Greco. And Greco is its own beast on its own. Like you said, like there's a reason for why there's no Greco wrestling in Canada. Like we don't support our Greco wrestling athletes. Like it's kind of fully funded on your own. Greco is its own thing, sort of thing. Just because we don't, like you said, we don't have any medals there, and it's not really big in like North America as Greco is. Like the U.S. team's not bad, but all the Olympic medals usually come from Europe and Asia. So
it's interesting though, because I mean, I know when we had Connor and Jaden on a few years ago to learn about the differences, that there is a big gap almost between the two, because it's sort of one of these sports where for a casual like myself who's really only watching the sport every 4 years at an Olympics, I assume that, they're a lot more connected, but it seems that obviously it's not. Like maybe it's a bit more like a cycling where, a track cyclist is different to a BMX cyclist, even though it's still cycling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. That's a pretty good way to say it. It is a bit, for sure. I say that just because over here, I think it's less so over in Europe and Asia, and where wrestling is a little more popular. But in Canada, it is definitely BMX and cycling on the road. That's 100% for sure. Yeah.
You'd eventually go on to compete in Tokyo, but I know that you actually got fairly close to the Rio Olympics. I mean, what is the qualification process like, just in general, for qualifying for the Olympics? If you're in Canada, And then I guess you, as well, just tell us a little bit about the qualification process going into Rio and then even Tokyo.
Yeah, so you the first step is making the Canadian Olympic team. Sorry, Canadian national team, pretty much, or Olympic team, either way. So you have to win the Olympic trials, come number one there, and then you'll get a chance to qualify the weight class at the Pan Ams. So the top countries in the Pan Ams is like Cuba and USA, pretty much. Those are the top countries. Now Mexico's getting pretty good, and Venezuela's getting pretty good as well. But yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. So you got to win two tournaments. Top two at Pan Ams. So
I guess,
like you said, yeah, go on, sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say that I guess the other side of that being that like this isn't a sport where, you know, I made my personal best time, so I'm gonna qualify. I mean, you're competing against other people, you know. So is there some luck of the draw? Like, do you have a scoring system when you go into a qualification tournament?
Before, this was the first Olympic qualifier, like the Pan Ams this past year when I qualified, that they seeded the tournament. So you could score points throughout the year by wrestling different tournaments and getting your score higher. And you could seed yourself. If you cared, like if the US guy was too good and you knew that you weren't going to beat him, you didn't want to be on his side of the bracket. You would want to try to like position your score a little lower than his or a little higher than his. So this year there was definitely that sort of stuff that came into play. Personally, for me, it didn't matter. Like I knew I needed to beat everybody in the bracket to win. But yeah, this year that was something. But in prior years, for sure, there's a luck of a draw. I gave up for the hope of luck. That I'm just not unlucky person. I get the toughest bracket everywhere I go. So in my mind, I've given that away. That's not going to happen for me. So.
Which it's interesting because we touched obviously on the Rio aspect in a sec, but I mean, wrestling's one of those sports where, in a way, if you get beaten by a tough opponent who's obviously going to go on and win a medal, it kind of works out all right because the repechage, right? It's like if you're getting beaten by the people who are winning,
exactly.
You want that because then you've got a chance to fight for medals, which I mean, we talk a lot about repechage during the Olympics and works, it doesn't work. But the thing that I'm learning the most recently, Amar, about all of this is that you guys love repechage because at the end of the day, it gives you an opportunity to keep going once you lose, right?
Exactly. No one likes to be one and done.
Yeah.
It's the worst feeling. So if your guy beats you and you better, you know, we all pray sitting I remember a bunch of times where I've lost and I've been like, I hope this guy makes it. Or he's in the semis and you're rooting for him. Go. So
that backs up Colin's thoughts, like, because he's a Leafs fan, right? So he's used to losing, but then he always goes on about the fact that he wants the teams that knock the Leafs out to keep on winning. Yeah. He's just hoping for repechage in the Stanley Cup. That's basically
eventually it's going to become a thing.
All Leafs fans want a repechage, right? Like, you know, they're 50, 60 years of pain. I mean, touching on Rio, so you narrowly miss out. I mean, tell us about that journey, because I've obviously read some quotes around sort of just, you know, you nearly gave up the sport at that point. It was very tough. You know, touch on that and then flip it at the end of it, the qualifying for Tokyo, because I believe Corey Jarvis sort of was a guy that beat you, but then you beat him, if that's correct. So you kind of got some revenge after that disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. It's like when, you know, you have a plan in your head and everything's kind of coming together. That's kind of what my story was for Rio. You know, I've since I was a kid, I knew I wasn't too young for the 2012 London Games. I knew I'd be perfect for the 2016. I'd be 20 years old. I'd be ready to go. So from a young age, I was like, that's mine for sure. And then when the time came and I stepped on the mat and I lost two really close matches, I was devastated because that was my ultimate goal. Like, that was just what I thought about, what I dreamt about every night. And I put so much pressure on myself to accomplish that goal. And when I didn't know how to deal with it at that time. So I had a pretty rough go about it for sure. Like I thought, you know, it was I did a bunch of really, really dumb things at that time. But fortunately enough, again, my life comes back to I've had great people around me and they brought me back and to the sport and kept my head right. And then we made a run for Tokyo, which things all worked out for me.
Before I touch on Tokyo, I wouldn't be doing my job properly here, Amar, if I didn't ask what were some of those dumb things that you do. Are you allowed to tell us a little bit about what you got up to there?
No, I did a lot of dumb things for sure as a kid. I was 20. Like I didn't know any better, but I knew that I was wrestling NCAA college season. So I literally took like a weekend off, went to wrestle the trials. I thought I was going to win and go on and win an NCAA championship and then go win Olympic medal. That's what my goal was. And then when I lost the first step, I didn't think about anything else after. So my coaches need me back in the lineup to start wrestling for NCAA, the college again. And I was like, hey, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not ready. Like, I need time. And in that season, you don't get any time. Like it's a grinder. So I remember I was in Oregon. I went to school at Oregon State, and there was one night where like it was like 1 a.m. or something, and I like packed my bags. I packed my duffel bag, packed everything up, threw it in my car, and started driving on the highway. Like, back home. And then it was pretty bad. It was really dumb on me, but it was just how devastated I was. I didn't know how to deal with loss. Didn't know how to deal with it at the time. So then my roommate checks on me. He's like, hey, this guy's gone. So he calls me a bunch of times. I told him, like, hey, I'm just going to go home. It was like a 6-hour drive back home. So then he calls our coach. So my coach rings me up a few times. And then I don't pick up, and then I pick up. And then he's like, pull over. Whatever, I pulled over. We had a long conversation. I whipped the car back around, went to bed, showed up for practice in the morning.
Wow. Driving 6 hours, why not? You know, geez, far out.
A lot of things.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, does that then make that qualification for Tokyo? And I'm sure that had its own challenges, given there was a delay and kind of everything that was going on with COVID, of course. But did you have a moment then where kind of it hit you? And I know I asked you similar before and you answered it, but like, you made the Olympics that time around. That kind of, again, similar to what I asked before, a lot of that had sort of made it worth it by knowing that you were finally going to an Olympics.
Yeah, like at that time, like right after I graduated in 2018, I applied to be a Vancouver police officer here, and I wrote the entrance exam, and I failed the entrance exam. So fortunately enough, I failed. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't have continued my wrestling career. So then we fast forward a year later, there's Olympic trials coming up, and I'm ready to go at that time. Like I knew Corey was going to be in the weight class, but I was super excited to wrestle him because he kind of dodged me for the last few years right after Olympic trials.
He was scared.
I never got to wrestle him, so I was waiting for my chance because even at that time when I was 20, like those matches, I knew I was better, but at that day I didn't show it. And I was waiting for my opportunity to show what I'm capable of at that time, and I'm glad that I got it in Tokyo, and then I went on to qualify the weight class. But Corey did great at the Olympics. He had a great years. My dad always said like, hey, like it's his time. Like he's put his years in. Like he's earned this spot. So,
what did your dad say to you when you qualified for Tokyo? Sort of, you know, he's the one who got you in the family business, but did he sit you down and kind of have a conversation with you about it at all?
Yeah, he was ecstatic. It's hard to put in words. He was super happy. It was dreams kind of come true for him. It's the amount of work he's put into the wrestling community and for his kid to go on and accomplish something that he's always wanted to accomplish, or one of our club kids to accomplish. So it was everyone always back home here always says like, you know, it's the fruits of his labor sort of thing. He's put in time to every other child that grew up in our wrestling club, and he's seeing that in you type of thing. So for I was super ecstatic. Obviously, his dreams come true. But for my family, honestly, it meant tremendous amounts.
Which obviously was tricky then, given that Tokyo, I'm sure they weren't obviously allowed to come. They had to support you from afar, which then does that make it, they've already got their tickets booked for Paris. They're ready to go. They're front and center, ready to see you wrestle in the Olympics? Yeah,
all my family will be there. My dad sadly can't make it. He's 75 years old. He's got a lot of health issues, but he'll be cheering me on from home for sure. But my sister, my brother, all my friends are coming to Paris, so we're looking forward to that.
It must have been kind of an unusual experience. I mean, I don't know whether for athletes where it's their first games, if that's harder or if it's easier when it is something like Tokyo, because here you are, you're an Olympian, but there's no crowds. I mean, very minimal crowds, I guess, Tokyo, and your families are there. I know that they had like the big video wall and everything. Like, well, how did you find the experience? Was it kind of a bittersweet thing for you, or was it, still, I'm an Olympian, I'm here, it doesn't matter?
Yeah, it was the second one. Like, I wasn't gonna let COVID take that away from me when I almost did for everybody, all of us. And when I got the opportunity to compete there, I was like, hey, this is Olympic Games. Like, it's weird in wrestling because, I compete against these guys every year. I see them all the time. Like, all the guys in our bracket, the 16 guys that qualify for the Olympics in each weight. I know all of them pretty much. And so when I was, the brackets came out and I knew I was facing the reigning Olympic champ, I was like, okay, like, here we go. Like, it's a tough road. It's a hard road. At that time I was still hoping for an easy draw. And then the exact opposite happened of that. And I was like, that's all right. Like, we got to deal with it at that time. And my coaches were good. And then sadly I lost a tough first match. But that's one thing I don't want that to happen this time. I'm trying my best for not to. I'm working my hardest. But the question after the Olympics always sucks. It's like, you went to the Olympics, that's so awesome. Like, how'd you do? And you're like, I lost. And then they're like, well, you know what? It's such a great achievement even getting there. I'm like, yeah, but it just sounds shitty now. Now that you said that, it sounds shitty to me.
To show them the thing behind you, all-time best.
Yeah. Pan around the room here. In contrast to that, though, I mean, you compete at the 2022 Commonwealth Games, which we covered those games. I mean, if we go back to our episodes, we probably mentioned you several times throughout the course of those podcasts. But that is, obviously not at the level of the Olympics. But was that, to you the biggest event you'd been able to compete in as far as like crowds go, and obviously with the success you achieved, being able to win a gold there?
No, the greatest show that I competed in for sure is the Division I NCAA Championships. That's for sure. We've through a weekend we have over 100,000 fans show up throughout a weekend. Wow. So we sold out Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
We sell out every stadium that we compete in every year. So that's a different experience on its own. It's a different beast. It's crazy. That's like fans on top of you, like yelling, like
and Madison Square Garden too. That's not the Birmingham Bowls Club or wherever the hell you were there. Wow.
Yeah, I know. We've done some crazy stuff in that. It wasn't a shocker to me or anything that I've competed in front of thousands and thousands. So it's that type of stuff doesn't really get to me anymore. But Commonwealth was really fun. It was a great experience. We had a great team there from Canada. The environment was awesome. How England put on the games was awesome for us. I didn't.
Did you get to see the bull? The Birmingham Bull?
No, I don't remember. I don't think I did.
Damn.
And again, I wasn't too stressed out about the competition. So maybe that's why it made it a lot of fun for me. I knew
Didn't need a bull. Didn't need that there.
I knew that walking into the Commonwealth, it wasn't going to be too tough a challenge for me. I knew I was kind of going to steamroll everybody there. So, but it's more something for my dad, my family back home. Like the Commonwealth is a big thing in India, and he really wanted me to win it, and I was like, okay, I can do that. I think.
And you beat a Pakistani wrestler for gold, which also makes the Indian side. That's a little bit, bit of
I got really big cheers out there when I didn't know anybody in the team, but they love me. That's for sure.
Yeah. We ignore the fact you beat an Indian wrestler in the semis, like you knocked off Pakistan, and we know that's a good thing for India. But about a month or so later, the world champs, you sort of back up a Commonwealth Games gold with 5th place at the World Championships. I mean, ultimately, you don't win the bronze, but still 5th at a World Championships. I mean, is that a level, given that a Commonwealth Games is obviously only Commonwealth nations, a World Championship is a World Championship? Do you look back and think 5th at the World Championships in terms of what you've achieved in your career, is that sort of the peak, and that bodes you well for Paris in a couple of weeks' time? Yeah,
for sure. I've always been like a realist, especially in my sport. Wrestling, I'm not one of those guys who are going to keep going when I know I don't have it anymore in me, just because the sport is too hard. And wrestling's such a difficult sport. Like you're trying to oppose your will on another human being is doing everything for that not to happen. So taking 5th at the Senior World Championships was just something that tells me that, hey, I'm still here. Like that was one of the things I always knew. Like if I believed that I couldn't be top 5 in the world. If I don't believe that I'm top 5 in the world, I'll stop wrestling tomorrow. I'll stop competing tomorrow. It's just not me. That's not what I want to do. I have goals in the sport. So yeah, it definitely showed me that, hey, I'm still here and I'm right on the edge for a medal, and I just need to beat 1 or 2 really good guys to get that, and that's kind of the process going into Paris.
I love that confidence.
I have to win a match that I shouldn't be winning.
Because I love that. I love that, Amar, hearing that confidence, because I do my research on this show every now and then, and I've seen here that Canada, at least in the men's side of wrestling, it's been 24 years since there's been a gold medal won in men's wrestling, but in the super heavyweight category, No gold has ever come in that category for Canada. 2 silvers in 92 and in 1984 to Robert Moll and then to Jeff Tupe, both beaten by the same American in Bruce Baumgartner, by the way. So you see Canada's kryptonite. So, I mean, I feel like it's almost due not only for Canada to win a gold on the men's side of things, but also in the super heavyweight. Like, is that kind of, do you look at that history and think, well, yeah, it's time. This is Canada's time now to kind of break this drought?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Like heavyweight wrestling is, we don't beat America. So like, and I personally train in America all the time. Like that's where I've been for the last 10, 11 years of my career. So, yeah, like it's time. It's overdue for sure. And hopefully I can bring that home for all of us.
Is Gable back? Is he coming back to defend his title?
No, he joined after after you won the Olympics, he jumped into WWE.
Oh,
So
he's one of those sellouts. He went pro.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn.
But it's super sad story. He actually got cut like 2 weeks after the U.S. Olympic trials.
So that's why he did. He got cut. He wasn't good enough anymore. There it is. There you go, Gable. Scared of you. That's what it was. He knew you were coming.
He's such a freak. He's an animal. It's insane.
The interesting thing, I was actually, going to ask you this more close at the end, but I'll just ask now. I mean, there's been some people who have transitioned from Olympic wrestling professional. Kurt Angle, it wasn't in wrestling, but like Ronda Rousey's Olympian to this. Gable Steveson. I'm looking at a guy right now who, you got the look, you know how to talk, you look like a superhero. Like, any chance that you'd be one of these guys when you give up the Olympic career, you're going to be the next WWE champion, WrestleMania?
No, they you know what? I've gotten called out for a couple like tryouts out to Florida, and they messaged me. They messaged me earlier in the year, same sort of thing, and I was like, yeah, I'm still focused on wrestling, like amateur wrestling here in the Olympics. I think it's professional because we do crazy hard sport. We don't get paid the big bucks that we do, but it should be the other way around. It should be called the other way around. But I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't want to say no because I don't want to close any doors and stuff, but. It's interesting to me, but I don't know. I don't want to be a sellout. I think this is hard. This is really, really hard. I'm not saying what they do is easy because I know it's not, but this is something on its own.
Olympic gold medal is just something a little bit more than WWE World Heavyweight. I mean, that's scripted. I mean, no, it's not. It's real. It's real. Sorry, don't hurt me. But I've seen those videos when somebody says that and a journalist gets punched pretty quickly. But I mean, an Olympic gold medal, right? Like, I mean, that's a bit more special, I think.
That's something different, yeah.
You got to at least be on level with Kurt Angle, right? I mean, Canada, slowly is developing this. I wouldn't call it like huge legacy yet, but you might be too young to, I'm sure you know the name, but probably weren't witnessing Daniel Lagali back in Sydney, and obviously Erica Weeb a couple of years ago. If I got this right, are you at this point the only returning Olympian as far as wrestlers that Canada's sending to Paris?
Yeah. I'm the only returning one. I think it's just timing wise, it just worked out that my age wise. And here in Canada, our wrestlers don't stick around the sport too long. Just because there's no big bucks here. I live in Vancouver. An average house here is selling for $1.3 million. Wrestling's not going to buy me a house from my family and me. So they don't stick around the sport too long in Canada.
As far as like Erica Weeb goes, I mean, the last Olympics were her last Olympics. Did you get to pick up anything from her? Are there any interactions that you get throughout the games? Anything you're going to pass on now as being kind of what she was in the last Olympics to some newer talent that you could be that mentor to the people who are going to their first Olympics this time?
Yeah, me and Erica are friends. She's cool. We have a good relationship, I think. But no, I mean, it comes down to like how you prepare and how you handle nerves and pressure and I say imaginary pressure because you put everything on yourself most of the time. For me, it was really, my coach explained it to me pretty easily, where it came down to, hey, like, he made me think about my life. He's like, what do you do right now? He's like, what's your life contain? And I was like, hanging out with family, hanging out with friends, playing tennis, just the normal, regular stuff. He's like, so tomorrow, if you win that Olympic gold, what's going to change in your life? And I thought about that question and I was like, nothing. I'm not going to get $1 million. I'm not going to be rich overnight. I'm not going to change my friend group. I'm gonna go back home to a loving family. I'm gonna go sit on the same couch that I do every day. So it's not So then he's like, why all the pressure? He's like, what's this all about? So I was like, that's so true. Like there is no pressure. It's fun at the end of the day for me then. That's why I try to tell all of our other athletes here, have fun with it.
You get to add a cool byline on your Instagram profile and probably get introduced a little bit differently. But I mean, that's a great way of looking at it. One thing that's always intrigues me with like wrestlers, obviously during Olympics, wrestling is the back half of the schedule. And for your event, of course, too, it's literally the last one. Essentially, you're on the Friday and the Saturday. What's that? Like, how did you find that during Tokyo, that you're sort of sitting around and seeing all this pomp and pageantry of the Olympics, and you've got to still stay focused? You can't maybe enjoy village life like the swimmers are doing after the first week or things like that. Is it a distraction in a way? You got to wait that long?
It sucks in that fact. It sucks in the fact that we have to wait just because we can't really enjoy the games like how we want to, in a sense. But for me, I'm kind of used to it. I'm a heavyweight. I've always competed at the end of the day. And, last 10 guys to compete would be me. So it's, I'm used to waiting around, but, you have fun with it. Like you take your personal coach, you take your personal training partner, and you go check out our new city, go walk around, train a bunch, go support other Canadians doing their sports. So yeah, it's not a huge thing, but then you always look forward to coming home at the end of the day too, right after you compete. So. Which
I'm not sure if you know this, or not already. Like I know in Australia, for example, the policy is with the athletes that sort of you do your competition, you leave. If you want to stick around, it's sort of at your own expense. You're welcome to. But is that similar to Canada? Like, are you sort of able to stay in the village the entire time, go to the opening ceremony, hang around, or is that sort of at your own expense and you only get put up in the village sort of maybe a few days before your event?
Yeah, so it comes down to for us, it comes down to Canada wrestling. So it comes down to your discipline at the end of the day and what they decide, like the people in charge pretty much. Our decision was that we're gonna head out 10 days before we compete,
right? And
then we're gonna be staying in the village the entirety of it, and then we're gonna stay until the closing ceremonies.
Great.
So that was us for it. Honestly, it comes down to funding.
Yeah.
Like how much money does your discipline have? Because so there's some people that like to go there. Some teams that like to go there 2-3 weeks in advance, do a training camp, then head into Paris, that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Bloody swimmers and runners, they get all their funding and get to stay there longer and all that kind of stuff, right? Like,
seems like you have something against swimmers here.
Yeah. Well, seeing how you guys are doing recently in swimming. Us Australians here are getting a bit scared that we have to look a bit north of the border rather than south. Amar, we'd like to wrap up with a set of get to know yourself questions, which we'll get to in just a moment. But I've got two questions. Well, one's not really a question; it's a show and tell. But the first question I want to ask, actually, which I don't even think Colin is aware that I'm going to ask this question. Just looking at Colin and I right now, right? You're seeing us here. We're two very strapping young gentlemen. Well, I'm young; he's old. But if we were to go on the mat right now and have a wrestle based on clearly seeing the upper half of us and nothing else, who's going to win between Colin and I?
I'm going to say Colin.
I'll
tell you why, though. I'll tell you why. No, we talked about you run half a marathon.
Yeah.
You're gonna get tired, Ben. You're gonna get tired.
True. No, I
gotta wait till Ben gets winded.
Yeah, I can barely run a 10K without walking for at least a couple of Ks of it. So no, that's a fair point. I'll give you that. But if it came to like sitting on the couch, I could probably beat Colin because he's got kids. He's always having to get up and run around. So
I sit on the stairs because we don't have spots on our couch.
the other part, and maybe we can add him into the bout. We have a show mascot on the show, Mark. This is Cherry. I'd like you to introduce Cherry. But Colin basically birthed Cherry by throwing a chair, so that's a whole other story. But inspiration, can we use him for Paris? What do you think he would be like to get you towards that gold come Paris?
He seems pretty cool. I mean, if you made him less dirty, I'd take a seat on him anywhere I go. But I don't know if he'll hold my weight, but he seems pretty cool.
You can see he tore his ACL 3 times as well. That's what the bandage is.
I was going to say, he got bandaged up there. Wow.
And gold as well. I mean, wrestling-wise, do you think flexibility would help him a little bit, or is it he needs more strength?
No, for sure. I think he'd do great. I think he's got a lot of limbs on him, so I think all those legs would come in handy.
Kicking around and everything.
You're sweating right now. You just don't want to be against him in the draw when it comes to Paris.
Talk about that bad luck that you keep on getting. So
right.
let's be honest, Cherry would beat me too. I'm third ranked there. I'm waiting for the rapid charge. We like to close out with a set of get to know yourself questions, and again, these are always based on a Team Canada questionnaire that were given to athletes ahead of Rio and Pyeongchang. And we've been told varying things. I know you get given a lot of media things in the lead up to an Olympics, and obviously you probably don't remember half the things you do. But we've been told by some of our athletes from Tokyo and Beijing that they were given like a written questionnaire, like a get to know you, but they never published it. So you might have answered questions like this. They just never did it. So not too sure. But we're using the question that was given to Erica ahead of Rio. So here's an aspect for you. And again, there's always a draw. If you want to draw them out, you don't have to. But if your skills at drawing are good, you can draw a picture of yourself, of a favorite Canadian animal. Are you a good drawer, or you don't care for it?
I'm really bad.
Okay, good. All right, we're waiting for one person to at least answer. I'm a really good drawer. I'd like to do it right now. To you, who is the greatest Olympian of all time?
Does it have to be from Canada?
No, it can be anyone.
Anywhere.
No, I would. No, I would. Then I got so many. I'll have to go with my coach then. One of my coaches that coached me in Tokyo, Travel Delegna. I think he was an amazing athlete. That's for sure.
Great. How many Olympics did he go to?
Yeah, 2 Olympics.
Great.
2 Olympics. He's got a bronze from 2016.
Yeah, well, you're going to match him then. You match him with the 2, and you're going to go get a gold. Just to be like, hey, coach, look what I did.
I'm just happy we get a coach. I mean, people don't ever think that this is the most considerate answer that we've ever had.
I mean, the most Canadian answer we've ever had on this show, actually.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
He was my coach for 2020. Now my coach is Logan Stieber. He's a world champ, 4-time NCAA Div 1 champ.
But not an Olympic medalist.
He's not the greatest Olympian of all time, though.
He didn't get a chance to go to the Olympics, sadly, but he's the man.
All right. Okay.
Here's the next one is the first Olympics that you remember watching was?
2010, that's for sure. Yeah, 2010. Maybe I've watched Daniel's match in the finals quite often on YouTube. So, but not live. Yeah.
I like Erica's answer here, saying Donovan Bailey winning the gold, and Colin's got his lovely Donovan Bailey picture behind him there. Just
nice. There he is.
There's old Donovan. If you could be any superhero, Amar, who would you be?
That's a good question. I mean, I love Marvel. I'm a huge geek when it comes to all that sort of stuff. I would say it comes down to Thor or the Hulk.
Yes.
Thor.
Yeah.
I don't like what they did with Thor the last, when they made him all fat. He was drinking a bunch of beer and he was, depressed. I don't like when they did that, but the cool one.
Follow-up is Thor versus Hulk in freestyle. Who wins?
Oh, shit. I think it'd be Thor. I don't know. I don't know. That'd be that'd be fun to watch.
I don't know if Hulk could abide by the rules. I think that's the only tricky thing, right?
That's true.
Yeah, throwing him around too much.
Do you have a favorite ice cream flavor?
Cotton candy or bubblegum.
Oh,
okay.
I'm a kid at heart. Yeah.
My wife, she doesn't usually get ice cream or anything like that, but every year around summertime when Dairy Queen does their cotton candy blizzards, she's like, we are going to Dairy Queen about 12 times between now and September. And they just came out with it now. So I guarantee I'm going to probably have that in my house by the end of the week here.
I like that. And for our Australians, that's fairy floss. I'll translate that for us south of the equator. In a movie about your life, who would play you?
I love The Rock.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He's awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, him for sure.
Which, the funny thing is, and I'm sure you get it a lot. We talk to Jane and Connor, they get it a lot, particularly here in Australia, is that, most people think wrestling, they think the WWE. I obviously grew up, it was still the WWF back then, and I obviously remember watching The Rock. I remember when he was Rocky and Avia or whatever it was. But I remember, I think my first taste of Olympic wrestling was through Kurt Angle because, of course, they introduced him. And I remember saying to my dad, like,
the medal. Did
he win a gold medal, really? And I didn't believe it. And then you look it up in the history books and he did. And I think I went back and watched him win it. And that's how I got exposed to Olympic wrestling. So it did something right, WWE, WWF. Colin, you remember WWF. You're older than me.
Oh, yeah, I remember WWF. I still call it WWF half the time. I think you already answered this next question for us, but we'll see if the answer is right. If you weren't an athlete, then you would be what?
If I wasn't an athlete, like no sport,
Hmm.
no sports. I mean, I have to say police officer because that's what I do right now. But I would like to think I'd be a doctor or something. But school-wise, I wasn't the best. I can. I would like to say doctor. But
I was going to say, we'd always say that if, I guess, we could. But so you then went on, so you are a police officer. You eventually passed that exam that you failed the first time.
I eventually passed the one I failed, and yeah.
How is the police force at giving you time off for an Olympics? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we have great leadership where I am in our department. They're awesome, and they gave me 10 months off to compete and get ready for the Olympics.
Great. Wow.
So they're fully supportive of what I'm doing, and so fortunately enough, they gave me that time off.
I'm just imagining you pulling somebody over a traffic stop or something like that. I don't think you're getting a lot of people arguing with you. Police officer of your size, your caliber comes up. I'll do whatever you say, officer. I'm sorry.
It's a fun career. You get to talk to so many people and meet so many people, but you obviously get the ones where they don't like us. So, but that's
Colin's just going to drive out to the West Coast and speed just so we can meet you. Where is he? Damn it. No, you don't arrest me. Next one. Come on. Your guilty pleasure snack is?
Oh, I have so many. Food's a killer for me. I'd say cookies. Yeah, cookies, yes. Chocolate chip cookies, and some milk, and the night's over for me.
In gallon, like things that you're lifting on the couch with your cookies, like that's exercise. Dipping it in at the same time, like, Oh, yes.
This one, we almost never get an answer for this. So if you can't come up with anything, just say skip it. We'll move on to the next one. Your favorite song lyric is? Do you have a favorite song lyric?
Oh, man. Yeah, I know. Skip.
It's a tricky one.
0 for 50 so on this one.
Yeah.
The next one's a lot easier, though. We always get good answers to this, and it helps me to add stuff to a watch list. The most recent TV show that you binge watched is?
Oh, I watched a good one, but it's a sad story. Right? It was a really good show. A sad story. It's a real story. It's called Under the Bridge. It was about a girl in Victoria that actually so a group of girls beat her up and she died. Sort of thing, and she was actually Indian as well, and it was back in the early 1990s.
Right.
So it was a really, really good show. It was really well written, really well done, acted and everything, but really sad story at the same time.
Okay, I have to look that one up. I haven't heard.
I swear I heard about that recently.
There you go.
But yeah, it just came out. Yeah.
I'm going to ask one that's not on the list, but it's one that's usually on the list, and I'm sad that it's not on the list. Growing up, who was your favorite sports team?
Sports team. I'm not the biggest sports guy, believe it or not. I don't really watch too many sports. I have a tough time sitting through it.
I was going to say, you didn't get on the Canucks bandwagon recently or anything like that?
No? I love the Canucks because they're our home team here, but I'm not going to jump on their bag just because I don't watch it too much. I don't watch it. I mean, if I knew somebody on the team personally or something like that, then I definitely love watching sports. If I know somebody and I have a connection to them like that, then for sure I'll watch them do their thing out there. I love listening to them like talk in this year, like the interviews and that sort of stuff after. But just watching the random guys playing a sport like that's tough for me.
Because I think I saw on your social media you're doing sort of some appearances, like some fundraising of that, and you're attending some events where there are some people from other sports, right? So I guess you get to bump shoulders with people like that, and I guess hear their insights into what they do. Yeah.
I love listening to different athlete stories, like listen to the podcast, listen to how they talk, see what they say, the different things that they went through in their life. It's extremely fulfilling kind of to me.
We might know a show for you, Amar, if you want to listen to some.
Exactly.
Might know something.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's awesome. That's a fun part of going to those type of events. I've been a bunch of events where like you have speakers come in and they've done extremely wild things in their life and just not sports and different like business or whatever it is, but it's all like kind of relates to you in the sense where you guys kind of do like everything kind of the same, but they're just in a different industry than you.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because like you see at events like they're doing this big here in Sydney at the moment, some big conference or something like that, where you've got like freaking Vince Vaughn's going to be there. So cool, yeah. Vince Vaughn. But then you've got like the CEO of, I think, of Baskin Robbins, or like, you know, just random things like that, where if you were to think about it, like, what do they have to be related? But at the same time, well, they do, because their industries, they're leaders, prominent people, so they've got similar stories to tell.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a different, I learned this early on in my college career, whereas when I was a kid, I grew up with a chip on my shoulder, trying to like, because when you work out so much and you think you're doing extraordinary things than the person next to you, you start believing that I'm extraordinary. But then in college, I got a reality check, and one of my coaches said this, like, hey, like, all you guys sitting here today, like, you guys aren't better than the people walking around and trying to get an education here while you guys are wrestling. Like, it's just, they're doing something different. So he explained it really well. Like, they're just doing something different. It's not better, it's not worse, but we all have the same stories.
Which I want Colin to take that on board, and he's walking around the off the podium offices going, I'm going to beat Ben in a wrestling match now. No chip on your shoulders, Hilding.
I'm going to put a bit of a spin on the final question here, because the final, you can answer both the actual question, but then the spin I have, what I'm more curious about. The final question is actually the best nickname you've ever been called. But as a wrestler and somebody who's in a very intense sport, you know, boxing, wrestling, there's always like the actual official nicknames you get, you know. I want to know, A, do you have a nickname you've already been called? And B, if you were to be the big WWE wrestler, or even just Olympic wrestler that has that the Beast type nickname or something like that, what would it be?
You know, in college, they called me, my head coach called me the Canadian Bear.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Because I was in America. And he called me the Canadian Bear after there was another guy in the States that wrestled Steve Mocco, and then they referred to him as a bear. He went to the Olympics for US back in the day, and he kind of had similar wrestling styles at that time when I was so he coached him for a little bit, so he started calling me the Canadian Bear.
I like it.
That kind of stuck in his mind, not in mine, really, because what guy wants to be like, walking around, oh, this guy looks like a bear, sort of thing. So
I mean, It's Canada's only animal that's more dangerous than the Canadian geese, which is our second deadliest animal. So
yeah, I'm deathly scared of birds and geese and that sort of stuff.
Thank you. I try to explain this to Ben about, like, geese are like a terror to people in Canada.
Yeah, I tried when I was there to ignite some fear into one, but they didn't want to attack me. So
no, they're scary. Like I was literally in Ohio training like 3 weeks ago, and there were geese near the car that I was driving. I had a rental. And I was like, I haven't been late for practice. Like, I need to get over there. But I didn't want to walk because there was geese right there. Like, I knew they were going to come at me. So I waited until they left. And then I was late 10 minutes for practice.
I really hope none of your competitors for Paris are listening to this interview right now. So they're just going to show up to Paris like, hey, Amar, geese. And I'm like,
they're just going to start flapping and squawking, charging at you.
There's the secret. Amar, before I hand to Colin to close this up, one thing I would love for you to do for our video, our viewers right now, can you spin around and show us what you showed before this interview? Because I need people to see this shrine to you and your brother that your family have done. This is incredible. That is the best room.
Like, the entire room is lined with medals. Like, and that's just the top. That doesn't even put everything.
But it's even going above the window. Like, that's insane.
This is wainscoting of medals right now.
And again, to point out to our listeners who aren't watching the video right now, he literally has a plaque behind him that says the all-time best. So, just saying.
You're talking about this one, right?
I'm talking about the other one on the other side. What does that one say?
They probably have so much. They probably has. It does actually. It does it.
The all-time. You've never noticed that before. You are the all-time best. The all-time best Canadian Bear. There's your WWE entry right there. Wow.
But before we let you go, Amar, is there anything you want to plug? Any of these events coming up you want to talk about? Your social media? Where can people follow you? Lead up to Paris?
Yeah, I'm terrible at social media. I am trying to get better. Instagram's Dhesi1. I do try to post, but I'm so bad. I just feel like I'm old, but I'm not old. I'm just in the middle there. I can get in there, but I can't.
I hate it when young people say they're old, Colin. Isn't it terrible?
I don't know. I just have a hard time with social media. But anyways, I do try to get on there and stuff, just because I recognize that our kids need a role model, and I want to be that for them. So I do always offer help to anybody up and coming in any sport really that needs the advice on like mentality, pressure, how to overcome fear, that sort of stuff. Just because I dealt a lot with that in my career, so that's for sure. And then our event, it's on June 6th, Aria Banquet Hall. It'll be a great night. We have lots of cool people coming out there. So yeah, for sure, like that. And then thank you to you guys. You know, off the podium, that's awesome. You guys are exciting to talk to. So I'll definitely be listening to some podcasts for you guys. And thanks for having me on.
Put that on the bio there, Colin.
Yeah, we're going to be cheering for the Canadian Bears / all-time best. You'll probably see a sign in the crowd during Paris from Ben, "Go Canadian Bears." So we're looking forward to seeing you in Paris.
Thank you.